When I started trying to go down the keto path, I had a hard time sticking to it. I would just get these cravings for food that I shouldn't have been eating. I've been keto for quite a while, but I think to myself, why not try going full carnivore? I started eating eggs, kielbasa sausages, and I would eat 1 to 2 pounds of ground beef every day. I still do. Slowly, over about 5 or 6 months, my condition started getting better. I really did pull myself out of the depths of bipolar disorder. I healed myself from brain inflammation by going very strict. Probably 99% of my food falls under carnivore.
And David, we are live. How are you, sir?
Doing well. About yourself?
I'm good, man. I am good. So you are in Arizona right now, correct?
That's right.
We got connected. Actually, my good friend Ross, who is the owner of F-Bomb, he and I have been friends since, I want to say we met in 2017. He gave me so much wisdom when it came to me starting my own food product business. I've stayed at his place. He's just an awesome guy. And he was singing your praises, gave me your contact info, and here we are talking today. So I'm excited to roll the curtains back on your story, man.
Yeah, and Ross, actually, this is very true. Okay, so I'm in my restaurant right now, Keto Carnivore, here in Kingman, Arizona. This place would not exist if not for Ross Taylor, and that is the absolute truth. When I started trying to go down the keto path, I had a hard time sticking to it. I would just get these cravings for food that I shouldn't have been eating. And when I found his macadamia nut butter, that F-Bomb on Amazon, it changed the game for me because it was able to satiate me and I was still getting a hint of that sweetness. When you try to tell people, hey, keto can change your life drastically, it's so much easier said than done when you're first getting started.
Mm-hmm.
And had it not been for F-Bomb, I would have never stuck to keto, and then I would have never found carnivore. And so when he came in here, my head almost exploded. He shows me his tattoo, and he's got F-Bomb tattooed on his arm. And I was like, this can't be. I mean, you want to talk about serendipity.
You didn't know he was the owner.
What's
so
that?
You didn't know he was the owner. You were using his product, and then you met him after
years later.
Okay.
Yeah. He just happened in the shop, and I thought, this is insanity. It was very serendipitous and very cool. And then for him to just be so helpful. I haven't taken his entrepreneur class yet. He offers classes, but I did take his food manager's class, and the guy is a class act, and couldn't be more appreciative. And I'm very appreciative that he introduced me to you, and thank you for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I feel like we need to all stick together in this space for sure. And Ross is one of those guys that he genuinely is just doing the right thing for the right reasons because he cares about people. And that seems to be this oddity or rarity these days. So when you come across someone that's like that, you just, you take what they say as a word of, it's gold. Like, he's got a heart of gold, and he helped me with packaging questions, production questions. Like, he gave me the time of day when nobody else would. So I'm forever grateful for him as well. And when he recommends somebody to get in contact with us, okay, I put a lot of stock in his recommendation. So I'm glad we're connected for sure. And you've got a super cool and unique story. You sent me a massive thread, which, to be honest, I haven't totally dove into yet because I wanted to get most of that firsthand here on the recording because I knew we were going to be talking. But you came to Keto and Carnivore by way of wanting to improve bipolar disorder, correct?
Well, actually, the truth is we started selling on Etsy as Keto Carnivore. That's why we have such a strange name, is because I didn't expect people to actually have to say it out loud.
Uh-huh.
We were on Etsy, and my wife had started baking with almond flour because our oldest son has just about every food restriction in the book. He had a hard time with some vaccines, went catatonic with his first round of vaccines and had some seizures. We don't know if that had something to do with what's happened, but we know that we have 7 kids now. He's 13, and he still can't have dairy. He can't have bread. He can't have, any kind of gluten. And it's been a journey trying to figure this out. And so when
What's your
Danielle,
oldest, you said?
yes, so when Danielle got really good at, and she's always been an amazing baker. She's been baking since she was 10. My wife is just this, I mean, amazing woman. Not only beautiful, but can bake, can cook, can do it all. I'm a very blessed man. She starts putting together these sugar-free, brownies, cookies, all these things for the kids so that James can be involved as well. And I told her, I said, this stuff's next level. You've got to sell this online. And we had been selling medical equipment online for about 10 years at the time. Well, I guess about 8 years. And so we knew how to sell online. And so she gets on Etsy. It takes off. We were, pre-COVID, we were about 5 of the top 10 items if you typed in the word keto. And it got to the point where she needed a commissary kitchen over in Henderson, which is just outside of Las Vegas. And when we moved to Arizona during COVID when they were masking children. We just didn't want our kids getting masked. And so we moved to Arizona to escape that, started homeschooling. And when this bakery here on Route 66 went on sale, we thought, let's give it a shot. Why not try it locally? This has worked so well online. And so even though it's not the most populous area, we thought there's got to be enough people driving Route 66 on vacations that we should be able to survive if we cater to this growing demand for gluten-free. And so we bought the building and got to work on it. And now we've been open this is our 3rd year, going on our 3rd year, and things are looking better and better and better. And so it's growing slowly. I still need to take that entrepreneur class. I have a lot more to learn than I know already. Let me put it that way. But things are looking up, and we ended up flipping the griddle on. Somebody that sold us the building left a griddle here, and then we got a gluten-free fryer. And now we're doing chicken wings and food cooked in butter, tallow, or lard. And it's going pretty well. It's going well. And we still sell online. We don't do Etsy anymore, but ketocarnivore.com if anyone's ever interested in some sugar-free snacks. It's good stuff.
No, this is awesome. What was the catalyst for getting into keto carnivore to begin with, man? What was that trajectory starting like?
Well, my dad was a physician, an ER physician, and he had us on something called the Protein Power Plan in the 90s. And so in about around 97, 98, my family that I grew up with was low carb. And he was way ahead of the curve. The man's pretty bright. And so I knew that was the way I was supposed to be eating. But when I got to my 30s, I started noticing that my anxiety levels were getting worse. And I was a little bit, you call skinny fat. I was skinny fat, where I've always been. I'm pretty tall, but I always had a little bit of a belly, and I noticed over time that my mental health was deteriorating. Now, I worked with medical equipment. My father sells Dr. Mom otoscopes on Amazon. It's probably the best-selling otoscope of all time at this point. And he was done using these professional otoscopes and said, if you want to sell these, make it your own. So that's what I was doing, was selling otoscopes, which is what doctors use to look in people's ears. But they were made of aluminum. And so I was working with a lot of aluminum, and I don't know if that has anything to do with what ended up happening, but I ended up having a bipolar episode. There's no other word for it, although to this day, I don't know if I really had bipolar disorder. But I did have an episode. And so I go to a psychiatrist.
What does an episode like that entail, if you don't mind fleshing that out?
Well, it was severe paranoia. I was living in the Vegas area. There's a lot, you see a lot in Vegas. You see a lot. And I was I suffered from a paranoid episode and thought that, that things were out to get me, that the
Mhm.
government was out to get me. I was a right-wing, social media. I was always saying stuff on social media. Next thing you know, I think that things are out to get me. And so I had a bipolar episode. I go to a psychiatrist in Vegas and I fill something out. It took about took about half hour to fill it out. The psychiatrist looks at it for about 15 minutes and he says, "You are bipolar." I thought, I'm in my 30s. How in the world could I be bipolar? And he said, that's where you're at. This is what you have. We're going to medicate you. You're going to be all right. And I said, well, and I think the second time I went to visit him, I said, when do I get off of this medication? He said, when you're in your grave. So he told me I was going to be on something called Lamotrigin for the rest of my life, better known as Lamictal. And what it does is it deadens the fight or flight response in
Mhm.
the amygdala of the brain. And so I was on that, and then COVID hit. And I remember thinking to myself, thank God I'm on this while COVID's hit. I was paranoid before. And here there's all these actual reasons for maybe being distrustful of the government at the moment.
Mhm.
And so it was a blessing from God. And I'm not here to say that modern medicine is harmful or should be ignored, or that you shouldn't go to a psychiatrist or shouldn't go to a doctor. I'm not saying that at all. But it is interesting that it took him 15 minutes of looking over my paperwork to say that I had a condition that I would have to medicate myself for the rest of my life. So then you fast forward 5 years. I've been on this for 5 years. If I don't take the Lamotrigin, I can feel my mania coming on. I can almost hear it in the distance, like a freight train off in the distance coming. And it's the only way I have to describe it. And I'm on this medication that quells that, but it also kind of deadens my senses to the world.
Mhm.
I didn't care about things anymore. I didn't care about people the way that I should. And here I am with a bunch of kids, an amazing wife that deserves only my attention and my care, and I'm not living up to it. I in a way abandoned the biggest blessing God could have ever given me. And the medicine was a big part of that. I was dealing with metals, with aluminum, and as well I have mercury fillings, quite a few mercury fillings. And so there's a lot of puzzle pieces of me trying to figure out how I was able to reverse all this. But number one is we bought this bakery and we start selling kielbasa sausages, by kielbasa brand to be exact. You and I just talked about it a little bit a second ago. Kielbasa brand sausages by the Kielbasa Company out in San Antonio. Very high fat, right? I start eating, and I think to myself, I've been keto for quite a while, but I think to myself, why not try going full carnivore? Why not try going full carnivore? And so I started eating eggs, kielbasa sausages. I started eating grass-fed beef, and I would eat 1 to 2 pounds of ground beef every day. I still do. And slowly, over about 5 or 6 months, my condition started getting better. And then here's the weirdest part. So I enjoyed marijuana. I enjoyed nicotine. I would dip Grizzly, like the worst of the worst. And I did that for years. And so I'm thinking about cancer. And this is post-COVID, so there's all this news coming out about Fenbendazole and ivermectin, that they can inhibit cancer cells. And I'm getting chicken feed for our chickens at Tractor Supply, and I look over and there is there's Fenben right there, goat dewormer. And I've heard people saying, hey, there's no harmful side effects, give it a shot. So I grab it and I take it home and I take what I think is about 222 milliliters. I didn't even measure it out, but I took a swig. The next day, I take another swig. And the next day after that, for the first time in my life, in 5 years, I forgot my medication. And not only did I forget it, but I get halfway through the day. It's about 2 p.m. And I call Danielle. I call my wife and I said, Danielle, you're not going to believe this. I just went the whole day. I've been talking to customers. I've been dealing with people. It's been busy and I never took my meds. She said, that's crazy. A couple days later, it happens again. I forget it and I'm fine. I get through most of the day without having to take my second dose. And then I'm like, what is going on? So about a week later, I told myself, okay, I'm going to go without it. I'm going to stick to the Fenben because that seems to have done something, and I'm going to go without it. Now here's what I don't know. A, I had a cat for 17 years. Could I have had toxoplasmosis, which if you know anything about toxoplasmosis, cat eats a mouse, it gets a parasite, and then if you have to deal with litter boxes or anything, there's a good chance you have it. 1/3 of the world is thought to have toxoplasmosis. That's
This
how
is
common
why the crazy cat lady phenomenon is a real deal.
Yes, I was a crazy cat. Yeah, dude. I was a crazy cat lady. That was me. So could that have been the case? Now, my cat was declawed. I lived in an apartment with it. It was never around mice. I don't know. The other idea is that I have mercury fillings and I was dealing with a lot of aluminum for a long time. For years, I was, and oftentimes nicking myself with these pieces of otoscope with aluminum. So I most likely have heavy metals in my system. Could that have had something to do with it? Now, mercury is very interesting. Mercury is interesting because when it gets in the brain, it strips your neurons of the fatty layer around the neurons. And so in 2023, spring of 2023, I started taking something called Colloidal Gold just for sleep so that I could have dreams again. So there's a lot of factors, but I know that I was poisoning myself probably in multiple ways. But here's what happens with the mercury, which I think is interesting. I think this is very interesting. So if mercury touches liquid, or if liquid mercury touches gold, it creates an amalgam and it turns it into something completely different. And I'm wondering if by taking this colloidal gold, this ormus, it's called ormus, could that have maybe softened up mercury that was in my brain and somehow flushed it out? I don't know.
Lots of stuff to unpack here. So you were doing pretty much higher protein keto before, like just kind of by way of how your dad raised you and what his research was indicating and working with patients and whatnot. So you were kind of doing that before you ever tied that to, trying to mitigate against symptoms for bipolarness, right?
Yeah. And I didn't realize that mental health and high fat diets you hear things, but you don't think that it could truly make a difference in your own life if you stuck to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it really wasn't until after I opened this place. And so my theory is that through marijuana usage, through heavy metals, I'm wondering if the neurons in my brain didn't get stripped of the fatty layer that they needed to work properly. And then once I'm in here and I'm surrounded by Carnivore, I've got the name on the building. I think, well, shoot, I better stick to it myself and give it a shot. And it took about 5 to 6 months. And then the Fenben, again, was that a parasite thing? Or could it have something to do with the fact that that menbendazole, fenbendazoles, all these bendabenazoles, they inhibit glucose uptake.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe that was the final cutoff that my brain needed in that moment to see clearly, because I have never gone back.
Have you dug into any of the research by Chris Palmer?
Yes.
Pretty interesting
Yes.
stuff, man. I know him. Like we've spoken at me in the same conferences. Like I've been doing keto for over a decade now, but what really excites me is all the research around mental health and what is being shown there. Because I got into keto because I was having extreme disordered eating tendencies, and I've always struggled with pretty debilitating OCD, and that volume knob is turned way down from an OCD standpoint when I'm following a very strict ketogenic diet. So it kind of like paired perfectly for me in that regard. But like any type of neurological health and function in general, I think, I mean, what keto's been able to be shown to do there is nothing short of amazing.
Exactly. I agree. I couldn't agree more.
So
And,
it's exciting stuff, man. And so you started the bakery just kind of because that's what your wife was doing and was showing success with, and then you gave up the medical device sales and just went full into that.
pretty much, yeah. I thought, well, you know, if someone could maybe offer breakfast cooked in butter, and I've always liked Farmer Brothers. I've always liked the idea of being able to pull up to a place and quickly get bacon and eggs. But they always throw, you know, bread in there,
Mhm.
and they'll offer oatmeal. And I thought, let's cut that stuff out and just give more bacon and more eggs. And so that was kind of the idea, was have a breakfast place, have breakfast, you know, we're open till usually about 2 p.m. and and have people be able to get the food like it used to be cooked. Breakfast foods like it used to be cooked, all American, bacon, eggs, or sausage and eggs, or like I said, these kielbasa's that I think may have saved my life.
How far are you from Flagstaff?
We're about 2 hours.
So I'm driving. I'm going through Arizona in April. My wife's got family in California, so we're gonna drive through Arizona. I'm gonna meet up with Ross. Is that like en route at all? Like, am I gonna see you? I guess Route 66. I'd be kind of going that general vicinity.
It depends. You know, where people usually come through here on their way to Vegas from Flagstaff. But
Okay.
if you're going to be in Flagstaff, give me a shout, and I can always run up there and say hi. So
Well, I might just make my way down there so I can get some real bacon and eggs cooked in butter.
yeah, you should. You should.
Talk to me about 7 kids, man. Like, there's so many different avenues I want to dive into here, but like, what in the world happened there? 7 kids, that's no small feat.
No, it's not. It's not. For us, every time the latest baby gets to about 18 months old, we start looking at each other. We're like, can we really not do this again? This is the biggest blessing of all time. And you get this sense that you get one shot at life. And if you meet the woman, if you meet the girl, every guy knows this, every married man knows this. If he meets the girl, how do you not want to just keep it going? Keep I don't know. I don't mean to speak from a place of pride, but I think I've got beautiful kids, and they're smart, and they learn so fast. And I'm like, man, the Lord has given me so much. And although it's tough, although it's not easy to just keep going with more and more, it's also shown me that it's kind of natural. The way that they get along, I just took them all to the park. I gave mom at least an hour off yesterday, and took all of them to the park, including the baby, and the way that they're able to get along and how sociable they are, I just couldn't recommend a big family enough to people that are thinking about it. It's not easy, and it's exhausting, but it's, in my opinion, worth it.
I don't know, man. Before, like early this morning, I'm like just inundated with negativity online. I've made some posts about this. Like, there's so much viral negativity. That's what the algorithm reward is, where people kind of flock to. That's where people's attention goes.
Yep.
And kind of talking about environment, nutrition, things of that nature. I think one massive contributing factor to health and a sense of, emotional well-being is like having a sense of purpose in life. And you're not going to find your unique purpose and operate your highest capacity if you're spending your time looking in the negative wormhole of social media. And people, they're putting themselves in an environment where finding their true calling is relatively impossible. And if that's the case, like, how can you hope to have, faith in humanity or peace with your day to day, or
Yeah.
strength and confidence and belief in yourself, or a higher power for that matter? Like, it's just not a good place to be. And I'm trying to figure out ways to hedge against that and beat that system. But like, as you know, having a business, having sold things online, so much of that, and that's where people's attention is. So like, you have to kind of be part of that, but
Yeah,
not letting the negative in. Is just it's a dance, man. It's a fine line.
it is. It is. No, I'm more pre- I'm very susceptible to it, and I think that to a large degree, I've traded certain dopamine dumps for others. I no longer dip Grizzly, but I do the pouches now. And I vaped for a little bit, and I could tell that that was no good. And plus, I found out there was seed oils in it, and so I
Hmm.
gave that up. But I still do the pouches, and I can get on X and I can doom scroll with the best of them. And so kids having a big family, that is a good reminder. When I get home at the end of the day, I don't have time to look at it. They are the best, I don't know, reminder that time is so precious and so valuable. Without a big family, I would have let that lesson get away from me easily.
Yeah, having kids. I mean, I've only got the two, so I can't imagine what it's like with seven. But like having kids in general, the finality of time becomes so overwhelmingly apparent. Like when,
Ye
like my youngest just started crawling this week, and
Oh,
it's
no
like,
kidding.
yeah, so it's like I can see the time just pass before my eyes. What are the logistics of having seven kids look like? How do you operate and run a business? How does your wife homeschool? Like, what does that look? What does a typical day look like for y'all?
Typical day, you and I were talking before we went live. In the summer, I was getting up about 4:30, and I'm still right now. We started doing wings at night on the weekends, so my sleep schedule is a little wonky. But typically, I'm usually up by 5:36 a.m. And I try to do a little bit of meditation, and then one of the kids will come out of the woodworks and jump on my lap, and then that's when it's time for me to get bacon and eggs going. Um, they all get up. My wife gets up, and we're Catholic, and so we do a seat and press Catholic study books, and we kind of guide them, but they stick to it themselves. Uh, and what I don't think people realize is that so much of school now is social interaction time. And so I can get our kids can get done with the same amount of learning and real work that they would have done at public school in usually about 2 hours,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes less. And then you'll also realize that if you just point them in the right directions, they'll start teaching themselves things that they are interested in that I wish I could have learned in school. Three of my three oldest, who are 13, 11, and about to be 9, they all have their food handler's license. So they can come up here and actually help with the food. And they know how to bake, they know how to make breads, they know how to do all that stuff. I mean, up to my 7-year-old knows how to cook his own. Actually, my 7-year-old is the best egg chef in the entire family, because he is so meticulous with every part of getting the griddle going and cooking eggs, and it's kind of wild. And this is stuff that when I was growing up, my parents were like, "Don't you ever touch." I was probably 10 years old, and they were still telling me, "Don't turn on
Mm-hmm.
the burner," you know. But that was a different generation with a different set of rules, and so it's kind of structured chaos. And you have to be okay with having a mess around. It's going to be messy. You can't be too neurotic about everything being in its place because it's just not going to be. But it just seems to be worth it in terms of their ability to learn. My son is now soldering things. He got a welding set and he is welding, and he's 13 years old. And I don't know how to do that. But he's teaching himself line by line, step by step, via YouTube, via books. He is learning how to build things with his hands. And that's something that is so foreign to me. I was a social scientist, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I liked to read, but I never took shop in high school or middle school. I never took any kind of welding courses. And so I'm kind of in awe of my own kids and what they're capable of building. My son can sew. My son has taught himself to sew. This kind of stuff is, in my opinion, very admirable. And I think that if you can facilitate positivity whenever they are getting these types of things done, that you're going to see cool results, and it gives me a lot of hope for the future.
100%, man. What is the curriculum that y'all are using for them from a homeschooling standpoint? Is there anything structured that y'all are doing?
It's seat and press, and so it's.
You mentioned that. I hadn't heard that before. So seat and press.
Yes, seat and press. It's a Catholic curriculum. Everything has religion and Jesus Christ baked in, and while I'm bringing up the most important person who ever lived, who is alive, let me say real fast that the first step of me getting healthy was I told God out loud. If I remember correctly, I think I said it out loud, but I had a heart-to-heart with Jesus Christ, and I said, "Thank you so much." Because I realized I have so much of what so many men are looking for in this world, and yet here I was telling myself that I was miserable. Here I was taking a pill and telling myself, "Oh, woe is me. I feel so sorry for myself." And one day, and I don't remember if I read something or I saw something on TV, I don't remember what it was, but I stopped and I said, "Thank you. I am so grateful, Lord Jesus, for everything you've given me." And that was, in my opinion, the true catalyst for the rest of what developed in terms of my healing. And I want to make that very clear. I don't know why, and I don't know how, but it wasn't just prayer. It was telling God, "Thank you. I am so grateful." I just want to say that real quick.
That's cool, man. How do you, knowing the blessings you have? Because I'm the same way. Like I look at my life, and I've got my health. I've got my beautiful wife. That's an amazing mother to my two kids. They're both healthy. I've got a great extended family. I've got my little farm with some pigs and a great dog. Like I've got so much to be thankful for. I've got the best crew and employees I could ever ask for. And I recognize all that, and I don't take it for granted. I thank God for it every single day. But like in the trenches, when I'm like dealing with finances or sales or trolls online or, paying taxes, it's like, shit, this is a lot of weight to carry. Like, how do you personally juggle all of that without losing sight of what you have to be grateful for?
I have to do things like take my kids to the park.
Yeah.
And the other day I had a heck of a day, and we were slow up here. I closed early and I grabbed a book, a self-help book for people with ADHD. I drove up Mount Hualapai. I hid behind a tree and I sat and I read a book for about an hour and a half up on a mountain. And it was dramatic and weird. And anybody that saw me thought, "What the hell is that guy doing?" And then I sat there and I prayed, and I drove back down and I went and got a planner and I started writing out, I guess what I do is when I reach that wall, when I hit a wall, and I hit a lot of walls, man, I'm good at hitting walls. When I hit a wall, I immediately stop, try to either talk to family or God, and then just recalibrate. But stopping and being okay with stopping and taking a deep breath is very important.
Totally agree, man. And I feel like you gotta, especially as an entrepreneur, man, like that happens on a regular basis, it seems. I think starting each day fresh, just starting each day fresh with by the time I get home, I'm wrecked. And then I've got to obviously be a present dad for my kids. But like giving them the benefit of the doubt, being there for them, but then like going to sleep, breathing it out, and then waking up and ready to do it all over again with like a positive, upbeat attitude. Like there's so much to be said for just treating each day as a new day,
That's right.
100%. Well, talk to me about the business itself, man. So you've had the business now for 3 years, you said?
Yeah, this is our third year. We started about 2 years ago, right around Christmas time, and so we're just entering our third year. Business is good. It's really good. We are cooking things in, like I said, butter, tallow, lard. We know our employees very well. I started doing sort of a podcast. It was supposed to be a weekly podcast, but life happens. And I started interviewing some of our customers that came in because so many of them had fascinating stories. I think it's very interesting how many people come in that tell me I could eat gluten for years. I had no problems with it. And then I hit my 50s or I hit my 60s and suddenly I can't process it. And the doctor says I have a gluten intolerance. And they're baffled. They come in very confused as to why they're not able to eat the food here in America. And then I'll have people that get back, or I'll have Italians. I had Italians in here not long ago. And a lot of Europeans like to drive Route 66. And so we get a lot of Germans, we get a lot of British, New Zealanders, and Italians. And these Italians came in and they said they can't eat the bread here in America. And so they were happy to have some gluten-free bread with our cheddar bagels. And something's going on. Is it GMOs? Is it Roundup? What is it that is affecting? And I saw that you, in your book, you talk about gut biome. You know very well how important it is. What is going on with these processed foods that they're literally hurting people? They're hurting families.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope when you look at how the food landscape has changed over the years, especially in America. And what you're doing, I mean, like the restaurants, the specialty shops that are catering to that, it's just awesome, man, because you're giving people a convenient outlet. So the name of your restaurant, like the physical location, is Keto Carnivore?
Keto Carnivore. We might be changing it soon. I'm juggling with some different ideas. Keto seems to scare people. And I think that anytime that here, I can see my glasses are glaring. Keto seems to scare people a little bit. And I
Why do you think that is?
I think that if you were around in the 90s or the early 2000s, but specifically the 90s, do you remember what you would call, like, I grew up in the Midwest in Illinois. You would drink if you had a diet soda, people would call you names. I'm not going to say the words, but people would call you names for drinking a diet soda because you were worried about being fat, and that was shameful to be worried about your health. Well, that's fascinating. That's a really interesting social norm to have shame applied to worrying about what you eat. So there's a sense of pride and machismo for people that say, well, I don't follow any diets. That's, they like to attach the term fad to it. But you do an amazing job with this book in pointing out, hey, this is not a fad. This is science. This is evolution. There's a reason that we're supposed to be eating high fat, high protein, and it's in our genes, it's in our blood. And so the word keto, people see it and immediately think health. And we have been trained, whether on purpose or not, I have no idea. I'm not a big I've fallen down some rabbit holes, but I try to not be a big conspiracy guy, because most things that turn out not optimal, it's not from some, grand conspiracy where someone's trying to hurt people for monetary profit. It's just people trying to make money in general. And it's not good or evil. It just kind of is the way that things tend to go. And there's something in America where there is I don't know what the term is, but it's not cool. You're just not cool if you're worried about what you eat. And people think that you look down on them. And it's not the case. People need to understand that when people like you write the books you do so from a place of love. And a book like that doesn't just write itself either. That's a huge book. And you put time and effort and your heart into it. And you don't do that because you're looking to make a buck. Nobody does something like that because they're looking to make a buck. You do it out of love. And so to try to help people understand that, hey, I'm not just trying to sell you snake oil. I am trying to do things the right way because science dictates that this is the right way. Butter is a gift from God. Lard,
Yeah.
tallow are gifts from God. Seed oils are machine oils. They were never meant to be ingested by humans. And we can show you the science as to why that's the case. But we live in a notification society that is so used to getting their dopamine hits before worrying about serious, deep information that I think people are having a hard time ingesting this, no pun intended, and letting it sink in. But thank God for RFK Jr. flipping that food pyramid last week. Thank God for Trump and some of these guys that are willing to say, go out and drink whole milk. I would love to see him say, hey, raw milk isn't as bad as you've been told either. And the more that we can get back to what our ancestors were doing, more likely than not, the healthier we're going to be.
Yeah, I completely agree on all fronts there, man. I feel like there shouldn't be a negative stigma around encouraging people to just eat real, minimally processed whole foods we've been consuming as a species since the dawn of humanity. There should not be a weird negative stigma around that. And there is, unfortunately. And like people, I appreciate everything you said about me and my intentions in the book and everything. I mean, obviously, like all of that came, like the keto bricks came, like my coaching came, like the book came all after I had improved my own health and relationship with food. And because of that positive relationship, I was motivated and compelled to try and help others.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in a capitalist country, which I'm capitalist, obviously I'm an entrepreneur, so are you, but it's like people assume the worst of people. They're like, oh, you've got something to sell? By definition, that means you're this charlatan online that's grifting people and just trying to take advantage of them and make a buck. It's like, no. Let's not be that cynical. Maybe we're trying to do this because that's a tangible way for us to make a living doing something that we feel called to do to help people at the highest capacity. Like that's what true blue intent, like good intentioned entrepreneurs are doing. And it's unfortunate that many people don't see that as the default, because there are negative people there that are grifting and doing things for the wrong reason. But like when you meet people that are doing it for the right reasons, you just want to get behind their messaging all the more, which is why I appreciate what you are doing with your operation, tangibly offering people a much better viable option to consume food in a setting that's enjoyable, that just takes the guesswork out of it for them. Because like when it comes to food, obviously it's got to have the convenience factor played in. That's just the day and age that we're living in. It has to be convenient. It has to be feasible, has to be at the right price point. But if you can strip away all the food noise and just the negative component of that equation and give people a quality option, yeah, their health will improve. And there's all kinds of different, ways to move the needle, like the heavy metals, the parasites, the sunlight, the environmental factors. But you have complete control over what you put in your mouth. And if you get that stumbling block dialed in, then the odds that you can make some serious positive momentum are just exponentially compounded.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and that's the idea, is just to do something that you believe in and that you feel with your heart is right. And it's showing in the ways that people come in and they tell me, hey, we feel better after we eat here than just about anywhere else. And I think people are used to not feeling good after they eat. They're used to feeling sluggish and thinking, well, that's what food does. And it doesn't have to be.
What's your favorite thing on the menu?
Oh man, these wings. But now I'll get tired of them eventually. But yeah, I love these wings. We've got really good roast beef sandwiches. So we do beef and mushroom. We do a Philly. We do all these things on these cheddar bagels that people are really happy with. But I try to stay away. I try to stick to carnivore as best I can. And I still cheat from time to time. I'll have a couple bites of ice cream that my kids are eating. But for the most part, I stick to it. And so, yeah, I love anything with hot sauce, dude. I know that true carnivores are not supposed to be eating nightshades. I cheat like nobody's business when it comes to hot sauce. Even my burgers at home, when I eat my burgers, which I eat every day pretty religiously, I like to have some Mexican crumbled cheese and some Frank's Red Hot on top. Nothing better.
I think that's totally fine, man. Like I feel like people, so like there's been this evolution of, ketogenic diets, carnivore diets over the past, I don't know, like I've been in the space for since 2016. I've been following the diet since 2014. But like the past 3 or 4 years, people have become so dogmatic with how they define these different diets. Like it's people are fighting against people in the same circles now. It's just weird, man. And like I've been strict keto that entire time, but I don't claim to be carnivore, even though 99% of what I eat is carnivore. But like I don't want to get into the dietary diatribe about, oh man, you had some red hot sauce on your freaking chicken wings. Like you're not strict carnivore. You're not eating beef, water, and salt. It's like people get so defensive over this majoring in the minors minutia that's not helping anybody. So like if you're able to rock and roll with it and it's not negatively impacting you, then I'd say freaking rock and roll, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And for that 5 or 6 months when I really did pull myself out of the depths of bipolar disorder, if that's what it was, it was brain inflammation. I healed myself from brain inflammation by going very strict, except for I did do hot sauce from time to time. But now I guess I better say I'm keto because I will cheat. Once a week I'll have something, but even then I only have a couple bites. And my wife's like, "You're carnivore. You're carnivore as close as it comes to." I don't know. I just know that I stick. I'm like you. I'm like you, where it's probably 99% of my food falls under carnivore. But you feel like you might go crazy. And then what that does, that dogmatic behavior online, especially in social media, is it makes people that are just thinking about getting into this say, gosh, do I really want to be a part of this kind
Mm-hmm.
of dogmatic's the best word.
It's not helping anybody. Like it's a zero sum game in which everybody loses. Like no one is benefiting. I mean, if you need a whole bunch of keto treats and keto ice creams and keto cookies, and those can act as a stepping block for you, so that you're or stepping stone from you, so that you're not eating fast food at McDonald's. Like, who's to say that's bad? Like, I'd say that's a massive step in the right direction. So, do what you need to do to get the momentum going in the right way. And like as you get more deeply involved in it, you can kind of you gain more of appreciation to what your body responds well to and doesn't respond well to, and then you can start minimizing the intake of things that it doesn't. So like I don't do many keto treats or anything now, but on occasion when I do, like I don't feel bad about it because it's all still within the realms of ketogenic. It's not creating cravings for me. It's not causing any issues. It's just not what I make my majority of my consumption. So like everybody's got to figure out where on that spectrum they exist, but poo-pooing on people and belittling them for being in a different spot on that spectrum is just unnecessary.
It is. It's very unnecessary, and people don't realize that it's what you're doing is you're exercising a muscle. You're exercising a muscle in your brain. How strong can I be in terms of saying no to this or that? And one of the most important aspects of sticking to carnivore for about 6 months, I wasn't quite lion diet, but I was close. One of the most important aspects of that was it trained my brain how to say no.
100%. Yeah, I mean that's why I love competing, because like that just strips out the noise and I'm left with like just the sheer amount of discipline. But in doing so, I figure out what I'm capable of, what really matters, and like I have better guardrails on life. Obviously, I can't adhere to that degree of just rigid discipline nonstop, and you wouldn't want to, but giving that time allows you to have the perspective which shapes and forms every decision you make at all times in life. And people need a vehicle of that in some form or fashion. Whatever that is for them, we all would benefit from that. Like we live in a soft plush time as a human species. Like we need some degree of hardship, some degree of adversity to make us appreciate the things that we have. And the things that are just simply a disservice to us, like the nonsense food, which I wouldn't even consider to be food, like that's just poison. Like let's just get that out of our life. The vices, the negativity, the poisonous consumption of vile substances, like let's just remove that and let's focus on what truly matters. What truly matters is the people in our lives, serving higher power, giving freely, serving others. And we could do all of those things at a higher capacity if we're doing so in healthy bodies, the one vessel we have to move through this life in. And we're disrespecting all those around us if we're not taking care of it.
That's true. No, that's absolutely the case. And you know, I know the people are going to see this and go, wow, he was living like that with that many kids. How shameful. And they're right. It was shameful. And it really saved my life to start with, one, saying, thank you, God, for what I have. And then two, looking at my diet first and foremost. What am I putting in to my body? What am I watching on screens? What am I putting into my brain? And when I was able to fix that, then suddenly things up here started working a little better, and I have been able to apply myself where it matters, which is here in the shop, making it work for Kingman. And yeah, we've been so blessed.
100%, man. Well, I'm excited to go there, see in person, and try some of the food, man. So yeah, April, I'll be in your neck of the woods in April. So I will definitely make it a point to swing by, even if it's a detour, man. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Hey, man, we're happy to have you. I really do. I've got the best breakfast in town, and I'm biased, but I've got the best cooks. Got the best cooks, the best bakers, the best staff in this entire area, and that's why we're doing all right.
100%, man. So where do people go to find out more about you, dive deeper into your world, get something online if they want to try that, and just follow along?
Yeah, on X. I was in the carnivore groups and posting a lot about that stuff for a long time, and I got a little bit tired of the back and forth with what was and wasn't carnivore. And so I ended up getting addicted to esoteric memes and religious memes and people discussing things like AI. But if you want to follow me, I'm an at David Schmitz, SCHMITZ on X. And you can follow our Keto Carnivore on Facebook. And we're about to try to get into Instagram and maybe TikTok and try to be creative and get the word out so that we can sell a little more online. That'd be cool.
And the online website is just ketocarnivore.com?
Yes.
Nice. Well, sweet, man. I will link out, make it easy for people to find you for sure. And keep fighting the good fight, man. I love what you're doing. I love that you're a positive influence on your 7 kids, paving it forward in life, and making a positive impact on everybody that's coming and eating your food. So excited to see you in person, man. If there's everything I can do, just let me know.
All right. Thank you so much, Robert, man. This has been so much fun, and your book is amazing. Everyone needs to read it, in all honesty. I used to study evolutionary psychology, and you hit all these points so well that it's just an amazing book. And so thank you for putting the work you put in.
Hey, I appreciate that, man. Let's definitely keep the conversation going, brother.
All right. Sounds good.
Appreciate you, David.